Hi, everybody. I hope you had a great 4th of July. If anybody hasn't seen my previous video yet, I recently just did like a 2 hour and 12-minute video yesterday where I read through the entire U.S. Constitution. And I broke it down. I said through my own opinions in there, some things we could change, some things that needed expanding or elimination, etc. So if you haven't seen that, go on ahead on my channel at Chamber of Progress and check it out. Please hit the subscribe button and ding that bell so that you get notified every time I drop a video. What I'm going to do today, yesterday, even though it was the 4th of July and I read through the Constitution, it actually had to do with Independence Day. It was a Declaration of Independence that we were kind of celebrating there. So I decided to make up for that and read through the Declaration of Independence today. And then I'm going to do a little, you know, political spitballing afterwards. So bear with me. It's not going to take 2 hours. Don't worry. This is only, I don't know, maybe like a 10-15 minute read maybe. I'm not that fast a reader, so bear with me, please. Here we go. In Congress, July 4th, 1776, the unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitles them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute a new government, laying its foundation on such principles as organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. And that's the end of the sentence, sorry. Prudence indeed will dictate the governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, I don't use this word, usurpations, I guess, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism. It is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having indirect, that's two separate words, indirect object, the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to the candid world. He has refused his assent to laws, the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. He has forbidden his governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance, unless suspended in their operation till his assent should be obtained. And when so suspended, he has utterly neglected to attend to them. He has refused to pass other laws for the accommodation of large districts of people, unless those people would relinquish their right of representation in the legislature, a right inestimable to them and formidable to tyrants only. He has called together legislative bodies at places unusual, uncomfortable, and distant from the depository of their public records for the sole purpose of fatiguing them into compliance with his measures. Boy, this sounds familiar, doesn't it? Okay, here we are. He has dissolved representative houses repeatedly for opposing with manly firmness his invasion on the rights of the people. He has refused for a long time after such disillusions to cause others to be elected, whereby legislative powers incapable of annihilation have returned to the people at large for their exercise. Okay. The state remaining in the meantime exposed to all the dangers of invasion from without and convulsions within. He has endeavored to prevent the population of these states, for that purpose obstructing the laws of naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage their migrations hither, and raising the conditions of new appropriations of lands. He has obstructed the administration of justice by refusing his assent to laws for establishing judiciary powers. He has made judges dependent on his will alone for the tenure of their offices and the amount and payment of their salaries. He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harness our power and eat out their substance. He has kept among us in times of peace standing arms without the consent of our legislature. He has affected to render the military independent of and superior to the civil power. He has combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and acknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation, for quartering large bodies of armed troops among us, for protecting them by a mock trial from punishment for any murders which they should commit of the inhabitants of these states, for cutting off our trade with all parts of the world, for imposing taxes without our consent, for depriving us in many cases of the benefits of a trial by jury, for transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pretended offenses, for abolishing the free system of English laws in the neighboring province, establishing therein an arbitrary government, and enlarging its boundaries so as to render it at once an example and fit instrument for introducing the same absolute rule into these colonies, for taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering fundamentally the forms of our government, for suspending our own legislatures and declaring themselves invested with power to legislate for us in all cases whatsoever. He has abdicated government here by declaring us out of his protection and waging war against us. He has plundered our seas, ravaged our coasts, burnt our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. He is at this time transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death, desolation, and tyranny. Desolation and tyranny, stupid phone. Tyranny. Already begun with circumstances of cruelty and perfidy. I never heard this word before. Sorry, perfidy, scarcely paralleled in the most barbarous ages, and totally unworthy the head of a civilized nation. He has constrained our fellow citizens taken captive on the high seas to bear arms against their country, to become the executioners of their friends and brethren, or to fall themselves by their hands. He has excited domestic insurrections against us, and has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers, the merciless Indian savages, whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions. Unfortunately, that's a little racist, don't you think? That is really racist. In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. A prince, whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be the ruler of a free people. Nor have we been wanting in attention to our British brethren. We have warned them from time to time of attempts by their legislature to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. We have reminded them of the circumstances of our immigration and settlement here. We have appealed to their native justice and magnanimity. I've never heard this word. Anyway, justice and magnanimity. And we have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred of our common kindred to disavow these usurpations. I lost my spot again. Which would inevitably interrupt our connections and correspondence. They too have been deaf to the voice of justice and to consanguinity? Consanguinity? Anybody help me with that word? I really don't know that word, unfortunately. Which denounces our separation and hold them as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war, in peace, friends. We therefore, the representatives of the United States of America in General Congress assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the restitute of our intentions due, in the name and by authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are and of right ought to be free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved, and that as free and independent states they have the full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliance, establish commerce, and to do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do. And for the support of this declaration, with the firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. There you go, guys. That's a Declaration of Independence. You know what's interesting here? I read this last. I'm sorry if I stumbled over my words, by the way. I told you I was a slow reader. It says here at the end, we pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes. This is right here. Let me see if I can get it. Okay. It's right there in the Declaration of Independence. Right there. Now, when we say we pledge our lives, our fortunes, our sacred honor, this is basically saying we're a nation, okay? And we're in this together. It's a very collective statement. Nowhere in this document, and nowhere in the Constitution I read yesterday, does it say that we must be a certain type of economic country. It doesn't say we have to be capitalist. It doesn't say we have to be socialist. It doesn't say we have to be a monarchy. It doesn't say we have to be whatever. You know, that's supposed to be up to us. So some of you may remember a couple years ago, Nancy Pelosi, stood up and told this guy who asked a question for her, hey, why don't you try socialism? Because, people seem to be heading in that direction right now. Well, she said, thank you for your question, but unfortunately, we're capitalist. That's just the way it is. Hey, Nancy, I got a question for you now. Who the hell are you to tell the American people what they are, what they can or cannot be? Who are you to tell them that? If we want to go in a certain direction, it's not up to you to tell us whether we can or can't. So you don't get to tell us what we are. You don't get to tell us what we can and can't be. Nor does anybody else in Congress or the Senate or the President for that matter. Nobody does. Not even those business leaders. They don't get to tell us what we are. Now, the Declaration of Independence, this is a really nice piece of work. Unfortunately, that Indian passage in there, I really did not care for that. It's a very racist statement. But keep in mind, I was just reading through the document itself. But, I can understand why some of these right-wingers may take to a document like this and think, oh, we got to overthrow our government because they're tyrants. Well, unfortunately, what they're doing here is they're being inspired by this document, but they're twisting the meaning around to meet their own political vision for the country. And not everybody agrees, right? Which is why we wanted democracy. More people in this country want democracy at this stage than they care for capitalism. You look at the numbers, it's clear as day. Now, majority of the country, like 57% or something, still have a favorable view of capitalism, but that's shrinking. As the new generations come in, people are shifting more and more towards socialism because they see capitalism failing over time. And again, there is nothing in there that says we must be a capitalist country. That's just propaganda. And the perpetuation of it is a way to enforce on you, on us, on everybody, their will because it maximizes their profits. They are acting like tyrants. And so what we have really is a spineless government right now that won't look out for the people. It's only out for the next fistful of dollars, just like the people who donate to them. And the corporations who employ everybody, they recognize they have a certain amount of power over the people, and they use that power to keep the masses suppressed and from being able to move upward because they don't want that. They think it takes their spot and poses some sort of threat to them. I honestly don't see why, but that's unfortunately the capitalist ideology. They somehow believe that there are people in the world and there's only room for so many, so we gotta have this capitalist system where we can win and they can't win and they'll eventually die off and we'll be left or they'll just serve us, whatever. No. Nobody likes being coerced like that. Capitalism is a very coercive system. And to people, and I noticed that military document that leaked out about a week ago or so, maybe 2 weeks ago at this point, where the military training in that Navy document said that socialism is a terrorist ideology. Really? Okay, well clearly these people don't know the first thing about socialism. Socialism and democracy are practically cousins, right? Democracy is a socialist concept because it involves society. It involves participation of the people. And capitalism has a rigid hierarchy wherein you have a very few people at the top who dictate everything because they eventually get all the capital. The game of Monopoly was originally designed as a critique of capitalism. If anybody's ever played that game, more often than not, you've probably seen most people don't even finish the game. I know that's the experience I had. And anybody that does, well, they're shrewd and they're cutthroat, and the other people are suckers. That was kind of the point of the game. So that's kind of my rant for the day. I hope you enjoyed the reading of the Declaration there and a little take on capitalism and how that there's nothing in our documents that says we have to be any certain way. So anytime anybody tells you we're a capitalist country, they're speaking for themselves and they're speaking for only people in their inner circle who share the same view. They're not speaking for you necessarily. Sometimes you may agree with them, sometimes you won't. But understand, it's up to us, it's up to we the people to determine which direction we go. It's not up to the people in Washington. It's not up to the people on Wall Street. It's not up to the billionaire class. It's up to the people. So don't buy into that propaganda, man. It's nobody's business but our own which way we choose to go as a country. So hope you enjoyed that, guys, and have a good day.